Wildfire. What do you think of when wildfire is mentioned? For many, the term evokes images of destruction, loss, and fear. While wildfire can certainly be destructive, that is only part of the story. In many ecosystems, wildfire is a fundamental ecosystem process that has a natural and unique pattern. This pattern that includes frequency, seasonality, intensity, severity, fire type, extent, and spatial pattern is collectively called the fire regime. Understanding the fire regime and how it has departed from the natural or historic norm is essential for the effective management of an ecosystem. This video is part of a series that delves into the complex world of fire regimes in the southwestern United States. By examining fire regimes, we explore the dynamic relationship between fire and the landscape, providing a deeper insight into the ecological significance of wildfire across the Southwest. Desert grasslands, the most arid of all North American grassland regions, lie primarily in southeastern Arizona and south-central and southwestern New Mexico. These grasslands occur between 1,700 and 2,000 feet of elevation in the Sonoran Desert and a little higher at 3,500 and 5,500 feet of elevation in the Chihuahuan Desert. Desert grasslands are one type of ecosystem found in the Sonoran and Chihuahuan deserts and are often intermixed with the ecosystems they border. Desert scrub at lower elevations, woodlands at mid-elevations, and forests at the higher elevations. Precipitation is the largest driver of ecosystem dynamics in desert grasslands. However, competition for limited resources and fire also shape these biodiverse landscapes. This video will cover the historic ecological role of fire in desert grassland ecosystems, or how the fires of the past helped shape the grasslands we see today in Arizona and New Mexico. The fire regime characteristics of desert grasslands, including frequency, seasonality, intensity, severity, fire type, extent, and spatial pattern. The changes that have occurred in desert grasslands due to changes in the fire regime. And finally, a look toward the future and the ways that we can manage desert grasslands to provide quality habitat and important ecological functions in ways that are resilient to climate change. Research has shown that desert grasslands are not only tolerant to fire, they are shaped by it. Traditional fire history methods like tree ring analysis are limited in grasslands due to the absence of long-lived trees. Instead, researchers draw on charcoal layers, plant traits, fire scars in nearby savannas, historical documents, and indigenous oral histories. Together, these sources show that both natural and cultural fires have shaped southwestern desert grassland ecosystems. Researchers also look at the characteristics or adaptations of native vegetation when they develop fire regime histories. Native grasses in Sonoran and Chihuahuan grasslands have developed traits that allow them to thrive in an environment that experiences low-intensity fire. Their growth is actually stimulated by the release of minerals from the ash that is deposited into the soil following fire. Additionally, many species, both annual and perennial, can complete their life cycle and produce viable seeds quickly, often initiated by just a small amount of rainfall. This allows for rapid regeneration after disturbances such as wildfire. In addition to reproduction via seeds, some grasses can also reproduce vegetatively, a trait that enhances resilience to wildfire. Scientific observations confirm that many species resprout from underground structures after fire damages or destroys above-ground parts. This is possible because the apical meristem, the part of the plant responsible for growth, is located near the soil surface, which is better protected from heat. In addition, structures like rhizomes or the below-ground stems and stolons, above-ground runners, enable grasses to spread and colonize new areas even in post-fire environments. A fire regime is characterized by temporal attributes, including frequency and seasonality, magnitude, which includes intensity, severity, and fire type, and spatial characteristics involving size and spatial pattern of the fire. The fire regime can have a large influence on an ecosystem. In arid or desert grasslands, precipitation, or lack thereof, is the main driver of ecosystem structure and composition, However, fire still plays a significant role. The compounding impacts of aridification, human use patterns, and invasion by non native and native species have changed desert grasslands, their fire regime, and how they are managed. Let's take a closer look at the components of the historical desert grassland fire regime. Fire frequency is a measure of how often fire occurs in a given area over time. This is usually expressed as a fire return interval, or the average number of years between fires at a specific location. Historically, fires in desert grasslands were ignited primarily by lightning, with natural fire return intervals estimated to be every 2 to 10 years. It is also likely that indigenous peoples played a role in maintaining grassland ecosystems through intentional burning, which helps regulate plant communities and support biodiversity. Fire frequency in desert grasslands is strongly shaped by a range of environmental conditions. Factors such as soil depth, precipitation patterns, elevation, and topography all influence the structure of vegetation, the dominance of certain plant species, and the continuity and amount of available fuels. These conditions, in turn, play a critical role in determining how often fires occur and how they behave across the landscape. Historically, most wildfires in desert grasslands occurred from July to September during the southwest summer monsoon season, when lightning strikes, the primary source of natural ignitions, were most frequent. This timing often overlapped with the curing of the cool season C3 grasses, and in some areas occurred just before the full green up of the late season or C4 grasses. Depending on the local composition of grass species, fires could be carried by the cured C3 grasses or dampened by the moisture rich new growth of C4 grasses. In addition to natural ignitions, intentional or cultural burning by indigenous peoples could occur at all times of year, as long as sufficient fuel was present to carry fire. Historically, desert grasslands primarily experienced low intensity, low to moderate severity surface fires that created a patchy, heterogeneous burn pattern. These fires typically allowed native grasses to resprout quickly and maintain dominance across the landscape. Grasses are considered flashy fuels, which means they ignite easily and burn rapidly, but produce relatively low heat compared to woody fuels like timber. Despite this, grassland fires were often intense enough to kill young tree seedlings and most shrubs, which helped limit woody encroachment and sustain the open grassland structure. Historically, fires in desert grasslands were generally small to medium in size and highly complex in spatial pattern. Rather than burning uniformly, these fires produced patchy mosaics across the landscape, with areas of complete mortality interspersed with unburned or lightly burned patches. This heterogeneity was critical for maintaining plant diversity and ecosystem resilience. The spatial distribution of fire in these systems is closely tied to fuel availability, which in turn depends on recent precipitation patterns, soil properties, and vegetation type. Years with higher rainfall often result in more continuous fine fuels, increasing the potential for fire spread, while drier years or shallow, rocky soils may limit fuel continuity and reduce fire size. These naturally varied fire patterns contributed to the dynamic nature of desert grasslands, supporting diverse habitats and limiting the dominance of woody vegetation. In the desert grasslands of New Mexico and Arizona, the historic fire regime has been significantly altered by a combination of fire suppression, overgrazing, woody encroachment, invasive grass, and climate variability. Periodic fires once limited woody plant establishment, but the widespread suppression of both lightning ignited and indigenous set fires in the late 19th and early 20th centuries allowed shrubs and trees like mesquite and juniper to expand. At the same time, intensive livestock grazing reduced herbaceous cover and fine fuel continuity, making fire spread less likely. Episodes of increased winter precipitation further promoted woody seedling survival and growth. Together, these changes disrupted natural fire cycles, reduced fire frequency, and promoted widespread encroachment of woody vegetation. Additionally, invasive grasses like layman's lovegrass have altered fire regimes by increasing fine fuels that carry larger and more frequent fires. Lovegrass also rebounds more quickly and occurs across the Sonoran Desert and in disturbed or wetter areas in the Chihuahuan Desert. As woody vegetation has expanded and invasive grasses have spread, the characteristics of these fuels have shifted. Fires today are often more severe and widespread, burning hotter and causing lasting impacts to vegetation and soil health. More recently, human caused ignitions sparked by vehicles, equipment, or recreation have increased. Unlike natural ignitions that historically occurred during the summer monsoon, fires now occur year round, further exacerbating the increase in fire frequency. The region's recent trend toward an increasingly hot and dry climate has created year long conditions favorable for fires, traits such as dry fuels, low humidity, and high winds. Simultaneously, the spatial dynamics of fire have changed. Roads, fences, jurisdictional boundaries, and expanding development have fragmented grasslands. This increases the complexity of fire behavior and management, resulting in more variable fire sizes and making suppression more challenging. Because many desert grasslands increasingly lie close to the wildland urban interface, homes and communities are increasingly at risk from high intensity wildfires starting in and spilling over from these frequent fire systems. Current management in grasslands is often focused on protecting assets and mitigating risks to lives and communities. While prescribed fire can help restore grassland structure, it's not always effective against invasive species or in promoting native plant recovery in hotter and drier climates. As climate uncertainty grows, land managers must explore adaptive, collaborative, and feasible strategies to protect and restore desert grasslands for future generations.